What are you going to do different this year now that you're the chairman to make sure that those community care options are there and to make sure
Right.
that those Mission Act things are being
Well,
implemented?
one thing we do, when you move into the majority, you get a larger staff. We've got a larger staff. We're going to be out in the field. We were that way in the minority anyway. But now and understand this, I have one of the best staffs on the Hill. There is no doubt in my mind. They have the most experience and they have the know-how of what we're looking for. And sometimes the management of the VA forgets that we have the oversight, that we control their budget, and that they do need to answer to us, and that the staff is an extension of we as members of Congress. And so we'll be doing, we're going to be out there.
I know there's been some points of frustration with that in the past and how responsive this VA has been to you. How would you characterize your relationship with the secretary and with the senior staff?
My relationship with the secretary is very good. Now you've got to understand that his farmer boss and I served together in the Illinois General Assembly. President Obama and I served together in the Illinois General Assembly. The secretary was his chief of staff. And so that doesn't mean we always agree. Matter of fact, there's a whole list of things we don't agree. But I can say that this secretary is, if something's going to happen that I probably won't agree with, he will call me even in advance and say, here's what we're doing. And then he also calls me with those things that I will agree with. And that makes for a very good working relationship.
Because one of the big concerns with this Congress has been some of the, the rocky transition here, some of the predicted turmoil that's going to be between Republicans and Democrats. Veterans Affairs in the past has been an area of agreement, has been an area of bipartisan cooperation. So do you think you can continue some of that even with some of these contentious issues that are going to come up?
The issues that we deal with in the VA committee and in the VA as a whole aren't about Republicans and Democrats, aren't about independents. It's about the veterans and what they need and what they deserve, what they've earned, and making sure that the delivery of those, whether it's health care or whether it's the GI Bill or the list goes on, that they and their family receive the services that they're.
Okay. One issue you already mentioned, and one of the first things you guys have already jumped on, is that electronic health records issue. You've introduced legislation just saying it's got to be fixed and you've got to have assurances before it goes anywhere else. Where are you on that program right now? Because there has been a lot of money invested. If VA decides they're going to cut ties, that's a lot of lost taxpayer money.
It's a lot of lost revenue. And here's the thing. Here's what your listeners need to understand. Congress never voted for that. That was a decision made by the previous administration and carried on by this administration. And the failure started as soon as they started working with Cerner. Now, we have been in the field. I've been to every location where the program is trying to be rolled out. The administration has been, originally, some of the administrations of the VAs where it first rolled out, they tried to put, let's say, lipstick on a pig, okay? But finally, after enough of them coming to the realization, not only the employees, but also the administration admitted there's problems. There's big problems. We don't want to waste taxpayers' money, but we also don't want to go down a path where we waste more taxpayers' money. So the two bills that I passed, one puts guidelines in place and things that, matrices they need to reach. The other one shuts it down, and we go back to the legacy system that we've used for years. Because the idea intent is not wrong that from the day you raise your hand on whatever military branch you're in, your records, health records, military records all make a smooth transition right into when you go into the VA. Now, some of this is caused by the fact that the DOD decided to use Cerner. And military, providing health care for our people in the military, they're not injured most times. They're not old. They're in the best health they've ever been in their life, which means the health care is different that you have to provide. When you come out, that's when things start, not that I would know that my body starts breaking down at 62, but it is a case where you're providing for a different group. And you're providing till the very end of their lives. And VA also provides for that benefit that a burial or whatever, or the benefit that might be for the spouse after that. And to try to keep up with that, we need to be able to be in the 20th century in a place where we have electronics and healthcare.
So what I'm hearing here is while you support the idea of a lifelong system, that may not be practical in a lot of terms for what veterans need for their medical care.
Right. The question is, who is putting the system together? And what we've discovered, and that's why we're having to make. They may be real good at a computer, but they can't figure out what that computer needs to do to complete the mission for healthcare. And that's a problem.
Okay. Let me ask you about another controversial issue that you're going to come up on. That's the issue of abortion. VA started providing some abortion services last fall. I know that's something that you spoke very passionately about in some hearings. What is the plan to deal with that issue and to oversee that in coming months?
I sent a letter already to the Secretary asking for specific information. Let me tell you very clearly, in 1992, a law was passed that said VA would not provide abortion. Now, the Secretary and his attorneys are using a 2006 law that kind of is a broad sweeping law and really doesn't have anything to do with abortion. That has to be decided in the courts, okay? But we still have oversight. And if you're going to start doing a procedure or procedures that can be controversial at best, but very much one that the VA itself has not been doing, we, as our oversight positions, and that's what I sent the letter, I want to know, not names, that's none of my business, none of our business as committees, but what procedures are you performing? How many are you performing? Is it the morning after pill? Is it late-term abortions? What was the decision to go do that abortion? Because whenever asked those specific questions, they said that that it would be like the Hyde Amendment. Well, no, it isn't, because their description was for the life and the health of the patient, okay? But what Hyde said is that it was for health, for life, not health. And then I had to ask, health, does that include mental health? And they said yes.
So it's a very broad...
It's a very broad opportunity to provide abortions. And I don't think that's the intent. And if they go down that path, then it should be the legislature that gives them the authority to do it. But the legislature was very clear in 1992. They don't have that authority. So we'll see how it plays out. But it still gives us oversight. We've got to.
Issue of VA funding. You guys have been very supportive, giving VA a lot of money in the past, but I know with the PACT Act passing and some of the ways that money's classified, there's a lot of concern right now that some of these veterans programs may cause a lot of budgeting issues as we go ahead.
Well, it is going, we already know it is. You know, by meeting and understand, and I'm going to get the wording wrong, but we used to have PAYGO, but that's not what we've got now. We actually have to find out what is a service that's out there or something that we're doing, and we actually have to figure out, okay, that's not where we want to spend our money, to spend money over here. So that's going to be a lot more difficult. And that's what's came up with this, that the PACT Act, I supported, and I, matter of fact, pushed to make sure they had enough money to get it done and done right. We talked about that earlier. But now there's many things that members still say, hey, I think we should do this program or that program. Well, then we're going to have to find out where those monies are. Of course, we also have to look very, very closely. We handed the VA a pile of money in the first COVID bill. Then when the non-bipartisan COVID bill came up, Biden's first bill, we handed them an extra $17 billion when they still had 10, if I remember, left over from the first. We need to know and be very diligent of where that money was being spent, or do we need to then redirect that funds to something else to help out over here? And we can do both. We can provide the services to our veterans and still be wise with the dollars that we're spending.
Well, and we've seen the VA budget has increased exponentially
Yeah.
over the last 20 years. Do you think you're going to be working even more closely then with the appropriators on these kind of issues? Because it
There is
seems
no doubt. We're already talking about it. Because when we're moving forward with the agenda to try to balance the budget, you've got to be wise. You've got to be able to identify. Now, let me say this, because right now when we're doing this is when the Speaker himself is trying to get the President to sit down and talk about that spending problem.
Chairman, thank you so much.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to covering all this with you this year. So,
Look forward to it.
all right.